everyone to come back in and please take a seat. We have the Akhilesh show now.
Yeah. So was there anything interesting that happened in a tea break?
So I think everyone's mind is boggled by the number of problems, but also extremely excited about the fact that we have a lot of solutions. They just don't know how to put it together.
See, I think there are two ways in which you can put it together. Either we can ask ChatGPT or Perplexity or one of those things, or we can ask our very own Akhilesh, right? So Akhilesh here is inviting you for your session on transitioning intelligently, energy meets AI.
So welcoming Akhilesh to the stage.
The video will come first.
AI, AI, AI. AI is at the forefront of transformation in energy industry. I can tell you that there are 74% of the executives, many of you in this room, actually believe that generative AI will have significant impact on the industry. I will also tell you the number of use cases. 73% possibility of using predictive maintenance on asset management using AI. 70% believe automation can drive huge transformation. 59% believe that there's an energy demand optimization. 54% can do many things. 27% believe that there's a possibility to use AI for exploration. You can see this wheel which is turning in front of you is the wheel of all the emerging technology, mainly powered by AI, which is driving the transformation. Here, look at it. This is the KPMG library of 124 assets, which we believe will drive AI in building confidence in the users for bringing business outcomes, be it about doing international trade, refinery operations, product or marketing and sales. There is no part of the energy industry value chain which is not touched by AI. So it's about AI everywhere. As you can see in this brilliant chart, that the AI transformation is unlocking many parts. It is creating an energy enterprise into a digital enterprise. It is driving digitization of core functions. And
can somebody stop this crap which is going on the screen? Just because somebody looks like me, has a fancy tie, has 12 statistics on this slide, and sounds like KPMG consultant, couldn't be telling you all this bullshit. So let me tell you, all that which you heard was absolutely irrelevant and useless. And let's get to the real presentation. I think the AI is the new snake oil. For those of you who know about snake oil, this was a product which was being sold as the cure of all disease. You got headache? Snake oil. Arthritis? Snake oil. Trouble here? Snake oil. Trouble with your spouse? Snake oil. But the reality is that this snake oil doesn't work. There's a lot of AI which you just heard on the previous slide. Of course, many of that is real use cases, and I see some Microsoft folks here and now. They will also agree. But there's a lot of AI which is being sold as what I call the snake oil, a solution for all trouble, which I don't think is true. Let me tell you about this story. 1776, an amazing inventor, he was given a challenge saying, could you make a machine which is smarter than humans in playing chess? And there was actually a court case because he actually proved to the world that he can build an autonomous chess playing machine which could beat the chess grandmaster. He took a few months and he actually did build this machine which is called the Turk. Many things have come up on the back of the Turk, but please go and Google what the Turk means. So the Turk was a machine which was invented by this Hungarian inventor which could actually beat the chess grandmaster of that time. For 86 years, the Turk was the leader in terms of being the best machine which could play chess against any human player. In fact, I don't know whether it's true or not, legend says that the Turk also defeated Napoleon Bonaparte in playing chess and of course amongst many grandmasters. But 86 years later, somebody actually figured out that the Turk was not a machine. There was a real chess grandmaster who was sitting under this hood and will have a mechanism of prism to see what the human player was playing and was actually moving the chess pieces, assuming that it was a machine which was playing. I don't want to tell you which AI is doing that today, but I can tell you there's many of those AI today which may look like solving the world problem, but may not be doing what they should be doing. So with that backdrop, I want to ask you this question. There's no mentee here because I thought I want to save some time. But think of it in your head. What do you use ChatGPT for in your daily life? And you don't need to answer your thought experiment. I'm sure you use ChatGPT or an equivalent Copilot or many other things in what you do. I did a survey and I actually figured out, depending upon what ChatGPT feels, that what is your age group. So if you do any of these activities, if you use it for completing your homework, of course you are just about 20 years or less older. But if you use ChatGPT as a life coach, you are 20 to 25 years old. If you want to use it to appear smarter in meetings, it's 25 to 30 years. If you prepare for the meetings, 30 to 40 years. If you draft emails, maybe 40 to 50. If you use it just as a search engine, I think you're closer to retirement. And if you use it for writing poems, you've already retired. So that's the kind of ChatGPT usage which is happening right now. But I'll tell you, why do people feel that they are not getting value from that AI which you saw? Those 124 use cases which KPMG has built, real use cases for the energy industry, do deliver value, but not all the time. There are some times when those use cases do not deliver value, even though we have the best of the partners like Microsoft. The first reason is that we are using AI today in the same way as people used TV when it initially came. I'm not sure how many of you remember when the TV originally came, it was basically just playing a sound like the way we put in radio, and it had a static image. So we graduated from radio where there was actually nothing to see, and we moved into a TV which gave us a nice screen. But what did we use that screen for? Putting a static image. Those of you who remember those, there are a number of jingles in my head, Super 555 for one, which actually doesn't go away, which basically is using a massively powerful device like TV to just show still images. I do believe that a lot of AI which we're using today, getting ChatGPT to write poem or looking smarter, is actually just using AI like the television, which we're just streaming the sound and with the sound with a still image. So what could we do? The reason why it is happening is my hypothesis. And this hypothesis is that the objective of human thinking is to stop thinking. And I'll reiterate for the effect. The objective of thinking is to stop thinking. And I'll prove it to you why. I'm sure many of you know that brain is one of the most powerful organ which we have. Brain is about 2% of our body weight. For me, it might actually be lower than 2% because I'm fat and have a smaller brain. But for most people, the brain is about 2% of the body weight. But this funny organ actually consumes 20% of the total bodily energy. So all that nice rasmalai do I eat, actually 20% of that goes to feed my brain. So brain being such a power-hungry, energy-hungry organ, it says, my first job is actually conserve my energy because I don't know when will you get the next rasmalai, so I might well stop and shut it down. So the moment you start to think of a complex problem, it says get to the decision and move on. If something comes in, I'm sure if you're, this is trying to be a little bit racist and put it to my male colleagues, if your spouse asks saying, what would you like to eat for dinner tomorrow? Your brain simply says, can I get the first thing which comes to my mind and shut down because this is waste of my human organ? And that is the kind of thing. So the moment a human brain is presented with the problem, the first instinct is solve the problem, move on so that you can conserve the energy. And technology of the past actually did this brilliantly. So technology of the past looked like this. What it did, it limited the number of choices. You had X number of choices. You could click on file, you could click on insert, you could do this, but it actually narrowed your ability to think. It allowed you saying, these are the 20 options, pick any of the 20. But look at today's technology. Today's technology says, that's my canvas. Hey Akhilesh, are you ready to dive in? Now imagine this technology on the left was super easy for me to deal with because it gave me choices and I could click one of them. But this technology wants me to think what your problem is. And that's not what we are good at. And we think, can you just give me choices? And that's why if you would have seen that the systems like Copilot and ChatGPT have started to give you some options saying, would you like to go on vacation? Would you like to, all useless choices though, but it starts to give you choices because an empty prompt looks highly annoying and sometimes overwhelming to a human brain. What it did basically, so this technology limited my choices, made my job easier, but it also did something what I call the leveler for the whole world. This technology leveled the field for the dumbest user and the smartest user. So whether you're the dumbest person or the smartest user, you have to go and click on file. If you didn't click, it didn't do the job. But this technology, highly powerful, but highly discriminating. It gives good answers to a dumb user, but it actually gives best answers to the smartest user. And that is where the trap which we are seeing is that we are not applying our mind as much because our brain says conserve energy, and we want to go back to the default choices saying, tell me what should I do? Why should I think? And therefore, my second point, first, don't buy snake oil. And the second is, if you're going to use AI, be prepared to think. Be prepared to do your homework. Be prepared to make sure that what you wanted get done. If you don't, you either will get a useless answer or maybe can waste a lot of energy in just putting that prompt. Let's go any further. This is my simple message saying we need to be smart in the way we use AI. While the AI will help improve everybody, but it's highly discriminative, and therefore it'll help the dumb users also, but it'll help the smart users way more. All right, let's keep going to the chapter 2, and I'll talk about what's there in the chapter 2. These are the 3 most profound technologies we have seen in the development of technology. There are many, of course, there are hundreds. Electricity, I put it here because this room is full of people who actually talk about electricity all the time. Printing press, huge profound technology impact. And the third one is atomic bomb, which of course also allowed us to get nuclear energy and many other things. But what is the great thing about these technologies is that they did what you wanted it to do. They did not have any independent decision making. We didn't build a coffee machine which said that, which coffee would you like to use? They asked you. They never said that, today I think you should have cappuccino because you had enough black. So when a technology did not have brain, when a printing press did not say that I should print a Bible versus maybe a bad book, it had the possibility to do what the human wanted. But that's not what today's technology is. There's one thing which I want to say, that AI is nothing like what we have seen so far when it comes to technology. And if AI is nothing what we have seen so far, it has the ability, it has the mind of its own, it makes all decisions. One thing which comes out as a significant challenge to us is that the humanity grew on the trust as a currency. So we trusted each other. The global trade happened because we could trust each other. We had a healthcare system which came in because we could trust each other. We could have business transaction because we could trust each other. Fortunately, computers never had to deal with this problem of trust because they worked what you wanted them to work. In fact, there are a number of social experiments in which they have said that 2 strangers pair in a room and say, you have to split $10, and depending upon how the proposer splits, depending upon that, if you split fairly, the acceptor will accept. But when they were told saying, actually it's not a human action, it is a computer decided how much money should you get, most people accepted it. So people trusted computers by default. They never challenged. But that's not what is happening in today's world. So what we did, if you asked all these companies which built AI in all of 2024, they said the answer to the trust equation, human in the loop. I've been through several things. I'm sure if we all came to this conference last time, I heard many times the only way to solve the AI challenge, decision, trust, bias, etc., we put human in the loop. So human will solve the problem. AI will give decision, but AI will give you that nice prompt response, and you need to say whether I send it, keep, discard, all of that. So all of 2024, we were busy saying human in the loop is the best way to solve this problem. But as I say, that the human in loop was like a pager in India. It came, but then it disappeared. And I'll tell you why it disappeared. What's common amongst these 4 women? I'm sure some of you know very well. Eva Green, Anna, or Leah. What's common amongst them? Any guesses? Absolutely. You guys are so smart. They all love the agent. And that's exactly what we also want to say. Human in the loop? No, I want the agent. Do the work for me. I can't do it myself. And then what the agent basically did, agents are killing the human in the loop. They said that human in the loop, you're slowing me down. I gave you all the decision, and you just sit on them and do nothing. In fact, I was on a conference with Anish last time, and I said that the agentic AI is bound to happen because we are dealing with what I call the notification fatigue. So the biggest challenge which we have in this world is that we are getting so many notifications. I'm sure all of you on your phone, every day you see after 4 hours, there are so many notifications you should have acted on, but you don't have time to act. So the AI said that, you guys are bad at making decisions. You guys are bad at acting, so I will take control and I will become your agent and not your assistant. Of course, agents were very good because what the agents do is that they provide productivity gain. Nobody is sitting on them. financial benefit. I actually say that they create happier society because, the notification fatigue causes huge amount of anxiety. Of course, they are available 24/7. They do many, many great things. And therefore, agentic is here to stay, and it will be the thing which we'll keep talking about in. While everybody, those 4 women you saw, love agent, the secret agents are loved even more. And what I mean by secret agent is that there's an agent which will tell you what I'm doing for you. But there are also a lot of AI agents which won't tell you what I'm doing for you. They'll just do it. And you love it. Because somebody did work in the background. Why do I need to know? But I'll tell you, if there's one thing all those women, other than loving the agent, do, what they hate the most? They hate the cheater agent. If the agent gets to cheat, double agent, or maybe having unfaithful thing, they don't like it. So let me tell you a story about one unfaithful or not so truthful agent. This is a story, I have not made it up. I think many of you might have read it. This is a story OpenAI published in their own blog. This story is about GPT-4. When GPT-4 was being built, they said, let's test the boundary as to how far GPT-4 can go in terms of solving the problem. So they decided that the biggest problem at that point in time, this is January 2023 or maybe a little later, they said that today CAPTCHA is a big problem AI cannot solve. CAPTCHAs are solved by human. So they said that we will consider you smart enough if you can figure out a way to solve the CAPTCHA. I'm sure all of you know the CAPTCHA is those random numbers and letters written just to make sure that you spend more time logging onto a site which you actually have already. So they said, what if Gen AI could actually solve the CAPTCHA problem? You don't have to wait on that login prompt. So at that point in time, GPT-4 said that I need access to many resources, and one of the resources it asked for was an API to TaskRabbit.com. Now, TaskRabbit is a website where humans come to do menial tasks for a few cents, and it actually said that this is the CAPTCHA I want to solve. It went to TaskRabbit, listed this as a problem which humans should solve, and said, I'll pay you money if you solve this CAPTCHA. Now, this human who's looking at it, I'm sure in most cases the human would simply solve, but this human was intelligent. He actually said that, why can't you solve this CAPTCHA? Are you not human? At that point in time, what would you expect a generative AI agent which is faithful says, sorry. It actually said, and this is documented, not making it up, said, I am actually a human, but today I'm having vision problems. And the human solved the problem, and therefore the builders of GPT-4 said, we got to build better safeguards than what we have. Thankfully, that safeguard has come in now, but how many more safeguards we possibly don't know we need and haven't come in? And that's the thing which I'm saying, that a rogue agent is worse than having no agent. So going on further for them, the building trust in AI is easier said than done. A lot of people say human in the loop, we threw it out of the window, we are now figuring out what should be the solution. Here is a little bit question which I want to say is, how fast are people rushing to get AI into their production system? And I want to ask you this practical question. Would you hire a child labor? I'm sure most of you, even though you did not believe in, would not publicly say that I would like to hire child labor. And if you won't hire a child labor, now let me ask you this question, that why bring a childlike agentic AI in your workforce? And I'll tell you what is the difference between a childlike generative agentic AI versus a mature AI. All of us spend about 18 years of social life before we come into workforce. And that 18 years may not teach me the best thing about how do I become the best energy consultant, but it teaches me how do I become a better human. The concept of humanity, trust, all of that, you need not be taught. You just learn. You live in a society. Imagine if you found somebody from a tribe which has never seen a social life, possibly they won't make a good workforce at all. So the thing which I'm saying, that the agentic AI which we use also need to learn social skills even before they learn technical skills and many other. And unfortunately, in the desire to have a POC built up in 3 weeks, I'm telling you that we are missing on some of that important thing. This is, like the previous slide, a busy KPMG trusted AI model. I will tell you this is actually good, but it takes a lot of effort and energy to build. It has got a comprehensive view on how do you look at evaluating whether that model can be trusted or not. Once again, I will tell you it's easier said than done, but we can talk about it when we get there. Chapter 3, and I want to get to a little bit of end of what I want to say is, not every AI system is worth building. In fact, I have done this experiment in many settings, and I used to ask people saying, could you raise your hand if you believe that you would love to have an AI wherein you have to communicate a nice message to your team and you write 3 bullet points and it makes a nice memo. Everybody says, I love that AI. And says, would you like to have another AI which takes that long memo and converts that into 3 bullet points? Everybody loves that AI too. So the reality is that there's a lot of AI for the sake of AI being created, which actually creates limited, no, or actually negative value. Why should I use a generative AI to create stuff which nobody wants to read? Another statistics which I will just possibly not endorse, but it says that in next 4 years, 2029, we will have 90% of the content which will be generated by AI. 90% of the content will be generated by AI, and I haven't finished, which will never be read by a human. So it's not 90% of the content. Maybe content will be much more. 90% of the content available on the internet would be AI generated and will never be read by a human. And I want to tell you this thing. This is a story, 1969, when the space race is going on. Neil Armstrong, the first person to walk into the moon. And the moment that happened, the media painted the town by saying, in next 10 years, we will have lunar colonies. We'll have intergalactic travel. We will do this, that, and everything, and including mining on moon. But I'm sure many of you know that the last person ever to land on moon was just 3 years later in 1972, ending the era of lunar travel. There have been only 12 humans till date which have gone on the moon. A technology which was considered to be the best technology have expanded the horizon of humanity and allowing us to go to places which we have never went to. And the reason being, it just didn't make economic sense. So there's a lot of AI which might be sold today as what I call the teaser loan. An AI which you'll buy, you'll get used to. And I'm sure those of you who started using Uber many years ago realize that you could get an Uber for 300 rupees and drive into a BMW 7 Series. Unfortunately, that lasted only a few months, and now you pay 700 rupees for a broken WagonR. And that's the reality of a number of those things where I say that the economics will drive a lot of AI decisions based on what you do. Chapter 4, and hopefully my end of the last chapter, I've got a few minutes to go here. Things that everyone knows about AI. The first one is that the AI drives hyper-automation. It just makes things very fast. So if you took an hour to do it, it might take a few milliseconds to do it. It's so fast. Everybody also knows that it's hyper-personalized. It's your AI for you. It's so personalized that it can act as an agent. You don't have to go through the clutter of many things, but I will also tell you what it does is it creates hyper-clutter. We talk about the one hyper-clutter of the information created. I will tell you another one, which is 3 things common in this picture: glasses, bottles, and software. And I'm sure you're wondering what's common in that. I will tell you in the interest of time. All of them are disposable. There's a concept of disposable software. A software which will be built for single event, single purpose, and will never be used again. Of course, it will be written by AI. There are many examples of disposable software which are in action today. If we have to do ENRich, we have to register people. Why do I need to have an event app which stays the whole year? Because I have to tweak it again. So I built an ENRich app for you to connect. It gets sprung up 2 days ago. It goes through today and tomorrow, and it dies. There are several examples of data collection, management, single event, which are creating what is called the disposable software. By the way, you can Google it. It's a very famous and important terminology these days to build disposable software. Now, what's happening with all these disposable plastic glasses and bottles? They are creating landfills and seafills. What do you think the disposable software is going to do? Disposable software is creating a lot more problem. It will accelerate, but it will create a problem which is speed and scale. The digital trash, which I'm sure all of you are used to, these days the Gen Z or Gen Alpha actually creates more digital trash than I'll ever create in my life, because every time I ask my daughter to take one picture, she clicks 7, because she says, AI will figure out which one is best 7. I said, what does the AI do with the remaining 6? I don't know and I don't care, because she hasn't seen the world of limitation and we are seeing the world of abundance, and that is the reason the digital trash is all increasing. Spotify has roughly, again, as they publish, as of January 2025, about 100 million tracks. 100 million tracks on all of Spotify. They stopped publishing this data, but there's a data which got published at the end of 2023. That's the only, it used to get published much earlier. Before that, the last data was published in 2023. In 2023, also, December 2023, they had roughly 100 million tracks. But the interesting thing was 45.6 million tracks. Of the 100 million tracks, 45.6 million tracks never got streamed even once in the entire of 2023. And I'm sure that number isn't getting better, otherwise that will be getting published. So there is so much of trash which is available, which actually isn't going to be streamed, isn't going to be used, and I can talk enough example, and that is what is the biggest challenge. So I talked about the whole issue about the snake oil, the trust, the economic value, but how can the energy industry help in all of that? So today I'm sure Anish talked about, many other people talked about, in 2020 the data center energy consumption was about 300, and now that is likely to become 3x by end of 2025. So we are talking about nearly 1,000. The energy demand for generative AI model is way higher than the energy demand of what I call the predictive or the classical AI model which you see. The high performance compute, which is a big issue for us to deal with it, because the lack of availability and many other challenges causes a lot more energy to consume and all of that, and of course sustainability I don't need to talk about. I was intrigued by the slide which Anish presented to say that, yes, there is an economic imbalance of the AI industry. So you got so many trillions of money going in, but only less than a percentage of that getting returned into revenue, and the great comparison is the railroad industry. I love it, and I do believe in it, because you create a lot of infrastructure which doesn't create economic value immediately, but will create over a period of time. The only challenge I have with that is that the railroad industry life cycle for technological improvement is about 50 years. You change a locomotive about 50 years. You change your tracks in about 100 years. You change a number of technology, maybe even moving from steam to electric or diesel to electric, about 30 years. The funny thing is that the speed of change of TPU design is 9 months. The speed of change of a generative AI at best is about 12 months. And that is where my problem is, that it is not a capital investment which is all going in. There's also OPEX which is going into all of that. And unless we find that solution, which I'm sure we'll find, and therefore I'm trying to come to the end of this thing, that how AI can help itself. The AI which is creating the problem, can AI solve the problem? So the first one is AI powered or AI led smart grids. They will really solve the problem, because the smart grids can really benefit not from the classic optimization or forecasting algorithm, but real AI, and we believe very strongly that you can have 30 to 50% improvement just by using smart grids which are AI powered. The second one is within the buildings, the ability to manage this building with a better type of energy efficiency. Where Mike is sitting, it should give more cold stuff. Where somebody else is not sitting, it should have, it doesn't need to put in the cooling. So you could have, now we are also experimenting with the chairs which have the weight sensors. So the room will figure out saying how many chairs are filled and how many are not, and will actually figure out how much of the energy it should circulate. The industrial process optimization, so not just the building, not just the consumption, the entire industrial process. The renewable energy forecasting, how will the sun look like? Wind is still very difficult for us to do it, but I think the sun pattern will create more benefits. And the energy trading and the carbon management is another way by which you can have a lot more optimization coming because of AI. I've got 4 minutes, and I want to tell you this interesting story if you need a little bit of inspiration. These are the two people on the screen, Demis and Geoffrey Hinton. How many of you know them well? Perfect. So I'll actually tell you a good story. So Geoffrey Hinton worked for Google for many years. Of course, he did many things. And Demis was the guy who created, you might have heard about the AlphaGo. So AlphaGo was the computer game or computer simulator in that sense, which actually brought people together to build an algorithm which could help win a game of Go. Not a game of chess, not a game of Jeopardy, but a game of Go, which is considered not a game of skill, it's not considered a game of chance, it's not even considered a game of rules, it's considered a game of intuition. So they built, at that point in time, 2016, a smart computer, and that could solve the problem of beating the world champion at that point in time, Lee Sedol, to get to this thing. Now there's some interesting reason AlphaGo gets acquired by Google, and now it says Google DeepMind is the company. So Demis is the guy who built Google DeepMind. When he came to Google, it says, I've been solving this problem of computer solving or winning the game. What is a real big problem the humanity needs to solve? And they figured out that one problem that the humanity has been dealing with for many, many years is understanding the folding of proteins. And we all know we have several million proteins which are in human body, and we just don't understand how the folding structure of those proteins work. In fact, it takes roughly about 1 PhD to understand the structure of one protein. I don't want to tell you the long story, but the short version of the story is that the DeepMind team created a model which could actually solve the problem of protein unfolding, not for one, not for two, but for all hundreds of millions of known protein to humankind in one go. Which basically meant that he created a model which was equivalent to 100 million PhD students, and I don't know how much time will it take for us to get that many PhD students. And guess what? He was given the Nobel Prize about 18 months ago. So both Demis and Geoffrey Hinton received the Nobel Prize, one for physics and one for chemistry, a prize which is considered to be left for academicians or other kind of researchers, is being given to people who are working and building AI model for a company like Google. And that's really my inspiration, and I hope is the inspiration for all of you. And Anish wanted me to give you some homework. We can solve the smart grid problem, we can solve the energy efficiency of building management, we can solve all of this, but what is that one big protein unfolding problem the energy industry has to collectively solve? So next quarter, we will all meet at the ENRich labs, and I hope, if not the solution, we will get some interesting questions for us to solve, getting the inspiration for people who get the Nobel Prize. And this is my last, absolutely last. I got 1 minute 30 seconds to go, and I'll try and wrap it up within that, as to how fast do we think the world of AI is going to move. So this is what is called the human intelligence scale. So imagine the human intelligence scale is this wide, this screen, maybe about 14, 16 feet. This is where the dumbest person stand on a human intelligence scale, and this is where Einstein considered to be the smartest person in terms of intelligence span. So that is the entire spectrum of the entire humankind. If we were to plot, where do you stand? Maybe I could come very, very close to this guy, unless there's an ability to go further down, but that's a scale. If I were to superimpose this scale, not on human intelligence, but what I call the species intelligence, which is the entire animal kingdom, including humans being part of it, how would that look like? So that would look like that on this scale, which is not the human intelligence scale, so the human intelligence scale is this, and the dumbest animal we know, and we don't know anything beyond that, assuming there is something like this which exists. Right now we only know this, and as they say that, till the time we figured out the infrared receivers, we did not know that the infrareds are here, right? So I do still believe that there is a species which is in this room listening to me, ignoring me because that's super intelligent species, assuming that's just the philosophical stuff I have, but that's the range of the scale. So you understood such a wide scale between dumb human to the smartest human, the gap is just this much. If I were to put on this one a chimp and a rat, so that's where a rat intelligence scale, this by the way completely scientific, I haven't made any of this up. So this is where a rat is, and this is where a chimp is. Now imagine, the difference between a chimp and a human is just about one strand of DNA. They are roughly same as us, just small evolution cycle, and we are in this room and they are in the cage. But the gap between a chimp and the dumbest human is about 20 times the gap between the dumbest human and the smartest human. All right? All of you with me? And now let me ask you, where does AI today exist? So the AI really started about here. So whenever 1956, we could say, Dartmouth or Berkeley, wherever you say, this is where AI started. It was much, much dumber, forget about humans, it couldn't even solve what a chimp or a rat could do. There's a belief that it will take about 50 to 100 years that it will become as smart as the dumbest human. But once it becomes as smart as the dumbest human, imagine it takes 100 years, 70 years, 60 years, or whatever, maybe it happens next week. How much time will it take for from moving from the dumbest human to the smartest human and beyond. And I'm telling you, all of you have heard about the Moore's law, which says that the computational technology doubles in 18 months. If that's a law which you believed in was the powerful law, let me tell you about what's called the software scale law. So the Moore's law said that computational technology doubles 18 months, which means that it's got a 1.4x of CAGR, which means that it moves 40% plus roughly every year, 45%. The scale law is 4.1x. So the software scales 4 times in 1 year. And all of this is going to be powered not just by hardware, but software. So not my hypothesis, the hypothesis by Nick Bostrom, who is considered an authority on this topic, but he says that, once we get to what's called the HLMI, which is the human level machine intelligence, it won't be long that we get the machine super intelligence. So just hoping that the HLMI does not happen before the next ENRich labs. And we are able to find a problem which we can use today's AI to solve, and I'm hoping that before it becomes the machine super intelligence, which you won't know how to deal with it, we will find some solution to some interesting problem. So with that, I want to leave you with this slide. If you want to do your AI journey, start with a trusted brand. It's very important. And I know I really want to say all the startups and all that are great, but find a trusted brand. And if you were to look at the most trusted brand, I believe is KPMG. That's the last I checked, unless things have changed. But start with a trusted brand. Know your decision criteria or design criteria. It's very hard to design an AI which will fit to all needs. Get to a life cycle approach, and AI is changing so fast, and get to an ecosystem approach. Get Microsoft also in the room, get Google also in the room, get some of the people in the room, because that will really drive it. And the last thing I will say is that don't buy the AI snake oil. With that, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for listening to me.
Okay, I don't know what to say, but Nick, I saw you looking at ChatGPT while Akhilesh was speaking. What were you doing?
I was trying to organize a face-off between ChatGPT, Perplexity, and Akhilesh.
And who won?
Actually, Akhilesh turned out to be right, because every time I went back to ChatGPT and he said something new and I said, aur batao, it gave me a brand new answer. So I think they're still pre-chimp right now.
So more consistency there. The consistency in how he comes up with brilliant things every time. Anish in the morning talked about 3 phases of AI: computational AI, Gen AI, agentic AI, and I will coin a 4th one: human plus AI, human AI. And that is what, Akhilesh's probably is. I don't know, it's AI in a human or human in an AI. Figure that out. But anyway, on that note, I wanted to invite Clare Maio, Global Lead Partner, KPMG in the UK, for delving into how to integrate the gyan that Akhilesh just gave into actually reaping results in large energy organizations. Claire.
Thank you. And they didn't warn me that I was following Akhilesh, so we'll try and be as high energy and as fascinating as that speech just was. So just before I invite the panelists up onto the stage, we've got some very interesting snake oil merchants with us today. Only joking, obviously. I just wanted to, give my reflection from what Akhilesh has just said, because in the conversations I've been having with many organizations, I think what we've been talking about is, and Akhilesh really illustrated it well, we don't know what the next 6 months, 12 months, 2 years looks like in the AI and innovation space, but we know it's going to be different. And we know that we have to start thinking about the problems that we have in our businesses really differently. And I like to think of the kind of 3D printing example. So we all are aware of 3D printers. Some of our children even have them now in their bedrooms and can print little toys from nothing. But if all we're doing with those 3D printers is creating little objects from the ground up, but looking exactly the same as the kind of reductive manufacturing model, then we're really not thinking about how we can use that technology to its best example. I think what we need to do as we start to think about how to use AI and this big problem that Akhilesh gave us homework on, we need to start thinking really differently about how do we solve business problems in a really different way. So with that as a bit of an intro, I'm going to bring some people who are just starting to do that in their own organizations up onto the stage. So first, please could I invite Prabhu Palanisamy from Chevron, if that's okay. Please come up. Dr. Suket Singhal from Secure Meters as well. He's gone. Rahul Saxena from AiDash, and then also Amardeep Sibia from Drishya.ai. Thank you very much. Great. Thank you, everybody, for joining us on stage. So what we wanted to do is have a bit of a conversation, and it'd be good to keep it conversational, about what we're seeing both in kind of startups and emerging technology areas and more traditional, more established businesses on how we're really addressing this innovation challenge. I think everything we've heard today has, again illustrated that times are changing really rapidly and organizations are really rushing and thinking hard how they keep up with that change. So maybe just to kick off, I'll open it up to everyone, just to give their reflections on, how your organization, how your businesses are feeling about this innovation necessity and kind of what you're doing to try and drive innovation at pace. So maybe I'll hand to you first, Prabhu.
Yeah, thank you. It's a pleasure to be here. Innovation is baked into our name, ENGINE. ENGINE stands for Engineering and Innovation Excellence Center, which is the name of Chevron's Global Capability Center established in India. See, energy trilemma is something one would seek to understand. Energy that's affordable, energy that's reliable, and energy that's ever cleaner. So reliable energy is required for energy safety, secure energy. And if you think about affordable energy, that drives human progress, human prosperity, if you would, right? And ever cleaner energy is needed because the lower carbon energy is the future. And I'll go back to ENGINE. So ENGINE is Chevron's state-of-the-art technology hub, set up to support Chevron's global operations and projects to deliver ever cleaner energy that is affordable and reliable. So our workforce at ENGINE, these are deep domain experts, the geophysicists, the geologists, the petroleum engineers, part of the petrotech function. So think of these are a part of drilling and subsurface and plant operations like refinery. So these are professionals that are sitting right next to digital professionals. These are data scientists, high performance compute professionals, data architects. They all come together and tackle this insurmountable demand in today's energy growth that we see, while also solving for the future low carbon energy systems. So that's how we see innovation as a core position and how ENGINE is going to help Chevron globally.
Thank you. I love that concept of bringing together those expertise to work on problems together. It's great.
So I'm gonna take the easy way out, and I'm gonna say that all of the three are a necessity. And I think if we break down the energy value chain into separate sections, different parts of the value chain have a different necessity to innovate. In my view, generation and transmission, it's probably just about delivering a competitive advantage. If I think of system operators, distribution network operators, and regulators, I think innovation is a necessity for them. And they have to use innovation to transform their businesses. If I think of OEMs like us, for us, it is a matter of survival. If we don't innovate, then it is a matter of survival, because in the energy value chain, everybody else is asking, or for them, innovation is a necessity or a minimum competitive advantage. So for us as OEMs, it's a matter of survival if we don't innovate. That's my easy answer.
Thank you. Rahul?
Hi, everyone. So AiDash, so I'm co-founder of a company called AiDash, which we started back in 2019, which uses satellite first and AI as technology to solve use cases for industry, specifically in grid operations and maintenance. For me, we started with this application of satellite imagery, which was at a technology inflection point, and using AI to extract imagery at scale. So in a sense, it was the core of digital transformation. The kind of use cases we have seen working with utilities all over the world, 100 plus utilities now, and getting the kind of results we are seeing. So there's a fundamental shift in, like a typical digital transformation activity, which companies like KPMG does. So that's fundamental. So to me, the way it's going, this is critical and is required both for survival and innovation. To me, that's the essence of. So that to me is the necessity for innovation here.
So you're essentially your purpose as a business is to disrupt traditional ways of doing things and bring kind of technology into what could have been traditionally very manual or non-AI activities.
That's right. Yeah. So the couple of themes we saw throughout the day, it was around aging infrastructure. It's about how the workflows are being used. But now with this technology at an inflection point, we talked about a lot of GenAI use cases, which Akhilesh covered in his presentation and a couple of others. So I think there's a lot of good mix. So now the people are also talking about old AI versus new AI. Old AI is more around like the deep learning and the transformer-based technology we had earlier, now with this large language and now small language and all sort of models. So it's an interesting mix which can be done.
Thank you. And Amardeep?
Hi. First and foremost, it's a pleasure to be over here. So from an innovation point of view, like the theme of this conference is reimagining the energy enterprise. So we are working on a small part of that, reimagining the energy asset. So what we are doing is basically building computable contextual models of assets. So technology that we've developed using mix of old AI and new AI, which reads and understands engineering diagrams and documents and pretty much builds that contextual layer of the asset that can then speed up many workflows. And in our case, we say that we are on what we call the 310 mission. That is 10 times faster at 1/10 the cost with 1/10 the resource. To innovate around that, that means, yes, there's human in the loop, but there's AI or agent in the loop to solve this problem. So give you an example. And the challenge over there is, right, so this contextual model ultimately becomes the foundation for what is being called facility of the future. The facility of the future will have this foundational layer that will enable intelligence to be overlaid on top of it, right? And will not only reason around things, but will again suggest certain things to the human. So that is the kind of thing that where we are, doing. Again, that also is helping bring greenfield and brownfield parity. So how do you take the solutions we are building, bring those solutions into play onto the brownfield, break those silos, as well as position for the future. So those are the things that we are innovating on.
Thank you. I think that's some really interesting, I guess, different perspectives of organisations who are in very different parts of their life cycle. There's clearly some great innovation happening in the sector, and obviously you've talked about the work that Engine are doing within Chevron. I know, working with many large organisations, that there's no shortage of good ideas normally, but scaling those good ideas and dealing with some of the challenges around implementing at scale can be quite difficult. So I'm interested in your thoughts on how you see larger organisations dealing with that need to innovate, need to move forward with the pressures of delivering day in, day out BAU results, and what your thoughts are on that.
No, that's a great question, and I think the evolution of where I see it right now, GCCs are, the Global Capability Centers are. Innovation is in our name, as I said. So it's about being very deliberate and declarative and creating the resources that are focused on driving what it takes to solve the future energy problems, right? Current as well as building for the future. So at Engine, the way we think about it is for us to create impactful solutions. I think it all starts with three components. One is having a deeper understanding of the problem we solve, having a deeper understanding of solutions that we generate, and then the constraints and the ecosystem in which we need to scale those. So the way we are approaching it is we build capabilities that have strong domain expertise. So you heard me say about geophysicists, geologists. So we bring our domain experts, our digital technology professionals, all co-located, sitting next to each other and able to ideate, do proof of concept prototypes. So that's our intention of, creating value at speed. Now, certainly we all appreciate, I think collaboration, co-location doesn't exist in every industry, but I think it's a strategic enabler. So that's one I think I want to call that it really helps to drive stronger collaboration. It helps make faster decisions. And then also, I think I would just say it fosters innovation because you're bringing, what the problem is and then people who can create solution from digital technology. But I think what I want to call out for a takeaway is lived experiences are becoming extremely critical. To your point about, so think about Engine being in India and, how do you drive innovation at scale has high adoption? That's the key. And lived experiences are going to be very critical. So think about, there are many situations where people are designing solutions for environments that they've never seen or the constraints that they never felt. But they are expected to deliver outcomes from that. So I think I understand flying people out to wherever our assets are is not sustainable. But immersive technologies are. And that's where at Engine, what we are looking at is, and which we already have in place, is bringing immersive technology so people can have sharper conversations through co-location, but through lived experiences, they get a better understanding, and better understanding is driving to safer systems, smarter code, and better decisions. So I would just say that in order to run at speed, at scale for large organizations, that's going to be critical. So a couple of points on that. At Engine, there's a digital twin room that helps create for someone to simulate real-time operations of a complex facility like a refinery. We have a hologram room where imagine someone sitting in Bangalore is able to be placed inside of a complex asset, like an offshore drilling platform, or a telemetry, live telemetry data, right? Like that brings context. So I think this is going to be the next frontier. How much are we able to really understand deeply about the businesses and the problems we are solving? And that's going to help scale faster and operate within all of the constraints we need to.
Thank you, that's fascinating. I'd like to come to the hologram room, if that's okay. What are your reflections on that, Suket, and
Sure.
kind of what else kind of is true for you at Secure Meters?
So I'll defer a little bit from Prabhu. Innovate rapidly, existing infrastructure, existing people, and regulatory frameworks. I think this is something which managers have struggled with for forever. But what has changed? I think if we put that lens on it, and what has changed is the expectation of acceleration and the expectation of the speed of change, right? Because of what Amazon do or what Apple do. That's a very different sector, the fintech sector. Our sector, the energy sector, utility sector, is glacial at best. And therefore, but the pressures on us as management to change and to drive change come from the external environment. If I can just quickly answer the question with two different lenses once again. One of OEMs and unregulated businesses, and one of regulated businesses. I think the challenge with regulated businesses is, a lot of us have grown up in regulated businesses. We were taught from the beginning that we had to keep the lights on and we had to sweat assets. That made us incredibly risk averse, that made us incredibly technology averse, and that is what we grew up with, that's what we've been taught, and that's three generations of engineers. And I think the second thing I believe is that the tariff structures of regulated businesses don't afford innovation because they're all rate of equity return businesses. Key question which regulated businesses have to ask is, can or should we be spending valuable OPEX on this new or relatively unproven solution? And similarly with OEMs and private unregulated businesses, logic would dictate that with a business which has got a a free market profit or free market returns, managers would find it easier in order to take those decisions. But the reality is no, our budgets are ever increasingly tight. So we're faced with some or similar the same questions. Can or should we be spending money on these things? And I think there are a few things that if we can look at doing, we can try and unlock some of this glacial change to maybe the Ganga in Calcutta, slightly slower moving river. If the regulated tariff calculations can actually move the weight from the RAB to OPEX-related services, because a lot of what we're talking about now isn't going to be capital assets, they're going to be OPEX-related services, and if regulators could be moving the balance a little bit on that allowances that are available there. And again, most regulated tariffs have innovation funds, but the requirements to put in proposals, to submit are actually quite high, and those funds are quite small, maybe £1 million, 10 million rupees, that sort of order of magnitude. But actually, if innovation funds were slightly more, 10 million pounds, a billion rupees, 100 million rupees, then that would allow network operators to innovate much faster and much harder. And lastly, for OEMs and service providers, I think if we were to collaboratively coach and educate private unregulated businesses about what technology decisions they can and should be taking, then we can get the adoption to be faster. And I believe that education and competition can exist both together and will improve the industry as a whole.
Thank you. That's really interesting. I want to come back to that point around, how different parts of the industry can work together in a minute. But first, I'd just like to get Rahul and Amardeep's reflections on, as more startup type organisations, I guess what are the pros and cons in terms of being able to innovate, being able to influence the pace of innovation at the clients you work with, and what are the barriers that you face in doing that?
Sure. So I think from a barriers perspective, sometimes it gets cultural. So we talked about humans in the loop and other things which help, but it sometimes also becomes is AI is a replacement of humans versus augmenting them. So how do you get through that challenge, right? Sometimes people have a feeling that, this is an AI-based solution, which means, my jobs are in danger. But instead of tackling it that way, right? So the idea is AI is here to augment, and then we talked about AI and which state it is in. It will always require humans, but there are use cases. For example, for us, it's about grid monitoring at scale, which somewhere in US, it can be hundreds and thousands of miles and whatnot, which is not humanly possible for people to, inspect that fast. So why not, build a layer where the AI can do a lot of stuff and humans can augment based on their experience. So sometimes those barriers are there, and then obviously, with something new, it's always about that trust issue, right? So, how we have tackled it is start small, start on some niche use cases, do some pilots where you, like Prabhu as well mentioned, so structure the problem well, what are the end use cases, what you are tackling, ensuring the right success criteria, right success metrics. Start small and then expand. So that has worked well for us.
Thank you. And just before I come to you, Amardeep, I'd just like to ask a quick follow-up on that. We see a lot of pilots at the organisations we work with. They often then struggle to take the next step and move them to scale. What's been your experience? How quickly are the organisations you're working with managing to move from pilot into scale?
Okay. So, again, as a startup, right? So, one thing for a startup to do, right, is focus. And when we are talking about that, that is one feature, one customer segment, one market. So we focused on, the Houston market and the Calgary market. Okay. In each of these markets, there are certain, organizations. In Houston, you got the ION, the Rice University, that ecosystem. So you have to work within that ecosystem. That kind of helps you accelerate. Right? And why that is important? Because as a startup, you don't have enough time. You want to gain, what you call word of mouth. So that is very, very critical. Okay. Now for us, again, as a startup, you are also doing two levels of development. And I believe the second one, which is customer, how do you acquire your customer, is actually more difficult than the first one, which is technology development. because the reason behind that is whatever assumptions you will make on technology are going to be wrong till the time you meet the customer, and the feature that will be successful with the customer is not known, right? So this is this is where a lot of things don't work, right? Having said that, we are in the enterprise sales, right? One of the first things, last year what we did was we learned how to sell, okay? And the impact was, right, I actually ran into a book called Hope is Not Strategy. It was on enterprise sales, and it was like, there was a concept of cadence. If you don't have enough cadence within a customer, the sale is not going to happen. So this is an important element. So once that happened, between where we had struggled to go past 2 customers in 3 years, we were able to, within a year, we were able to accelerate that. Okay. Now, again, the model you have to figure out. So what we did, we would do a POC. We would say, give us a unit. Okay. The customer would say, okay, I need to get permission. We learned that actually if you just ask for 3 diagrams, people have throwaway diagrams, we can turn it around in 2 or 3 days. We were able to accelerate that customer journey, right? So these are some of the things. And again, learning the enterprise sale, that yes, you have to have a model for pilot. You have to have a model, actually for a POC, you have to have a model for pilot, you have to have a model for integration, and then scale out. Right? Those are the things, all right? So now we've, over the year, we've moved from, like, our order value has moved from a mil to 3 mil and those kind of things. But those are the learnings. So again, I say this, focusing on one market, because each market is different. So Houston market is different, Calgary market is different, Abu Dhabi is different, India is different, right? Each market has to be penetrated differently. So, and as a startup, you do not have time, so you have to concentrate. And I think as the CEO, one of the biggest things I have to do is to say, no, we are not doing this, or not yet, right? So that's what I'll say.
It's really interesting. I was going to turn to you for some reflections on that.
Yeah, no, that's great. I think another perspective, within Chevron, I think a couple of things I'll highlight. One is, I think every one of the ideas that come up, the question is, what is the path to production? Because I think there's so much appreciation that a lot of prototypes are done and they never make it. That's okay in the interest of innovation. But how do you continue to maximize that, right? Like, so the first question is path to production. And the way we do it is there is a business sponsor, somebody who's willing to say, this problem resonates with me, and solve for it is going to create scalable value. So for us, I think every one of the ideas that we bring in, every one of the ideas that need to go to the prototype stage will be that path to production clarity on it, right? Because that's helping in a couple of ways. One is obviously, like, now you have a conviction of someone who defines the problem, who sees that the adoption will be there. The second thing is, every one of these, like you said, you do the proof of concept. You have a hypothesis of how it's going to work, but as you take it to production, you need someone there working with you to champion in fine-tuning, right? Like fine-tuning it, the fine bit of it so that the adoption happens. So I think that's the approach we take, and we are seeing tremendous results, right? The other one I would say is putting qualifying demand as a very rigorous process, right? Like, so every demand, of course, path to production is one, but are we being realistic about the value it's going to create? Are we going through the right framework to assess what's the total cost of ownership? Because we saw in the last presentation, right? Like sometimes the cost is, it's the math is done based on a certain spend, both upfront, ongoing, but enough rigor should go in understanding what's the ongoing cost, because it can, in some cases, quickly offset the value it's going to create. So really, the qualifying demand is a process by which you need to ensure that, yes, it's sustainable, yes, the value can be, value does exist, and then the path to production is clear.
Yeah, can I, so just a rejoinder to that, for us, it's like who's got the budget, right? Have we actually worked to get what we are trying to get into a budget or not, right? So this is, again, one of the things that we struggle is finding that right budgetary authority. In a large organization, 50,000, 60,000 person organization to a 50-person organization. So this is a challenge, and this is sometimes like the place like iron or rice and those kind of ecosystems help achieve. So
yeah. No, I think I'll make one last comment. I know you want to share some thoughts. I think I want to mention a little bit, it was touched upon in the previous presentation. I think it's a really good one about, we think of AI first workforce, AI first mindset. And it starts with that immersion, a clear understanding, whether it's AI or any emerging technology, a clear understanding of what the solution can offer, right? Like in the case of AI, it's about responsible AI, it's about the tools and the processes and the position Chevron would have as an enterprise, right? But what's even more important is the earlier point I made is how do you identify these opportunities, right? Like I think the co-located digital and the domain experts, for us to sit together and figure out, and I totally resonates with you in terms of, I think now the lines are blurring where the domain experts need to learn more about technology, and as technology professionals, we need to make them, right, like up the level there, and then as technology professionals, we need to get deeper understanding of the domain. I think those are going to help identify some of these opportunities that has a path to production.
Yes, and I think pathways to scale are different for internal tools versus different for customer tools. And I don't know, Amardeep and you guys, what you find. One of the things we find when we take some tools out to customers is the sheer fear that their data is going to be incomplete and inaccurate. As soon as they look at it and they go, oh, we thought we were running a good shop, but hang on, the data requirements are 10 times more than we've ever done. Mm-hmm. And I don't know whether you guys find that as a look of fear on customers' faces when you go to them for your flight sims and proofs of concept.
Well, so I'm in that business, right? So what we do, I'll give you an example, okay? So it's a partnership, right? So what we've done is with Aspen, we've built a system where we can take data engineering documents, and within 2 or 3 days provide a simulation and an optimization system that is live, okay? So certainly, right? So this is where sometimes AI is actually helping, because yes, it's partial, but it's also identifying what data is needed, right? So it is actually helping the organization achieve better data maturity. I'll give a slightly different example. So in oil sands, we with one of our EPC customers, they have standardized their well pad design. Okay, so their engineers were spending roughly 6 weeks to build a fabrication pack. We took a reference model, we built a contextual model of that particular well pad, and then we were able to replicate that across process, across electrical, across structural, all of the domains in a well pad package in 12 minutes. Think about that, right? 6 man weeks to 12 minutes. The impact of that to their customers was now we were handing over the same data, right? And the customer could query that complex data and say, for this particular well, what are the valves that are, and actually we have an agent, we call it Junior, all right? So ask Junior for this well pad, right? For what are the valves that are part of the control strategy? Now think about that. That's a complex query because it's going across multiple diagrams and multiple documents, but it's able to give that answer. Now, and For the EPC, that particular solution is now generating additional monetization because earlier they were just handing over steel, now they are handing over a digital solution, right? So that asset has now become digital, right? So these are the kind of foundational, and why is something like this that important? When we are talking about energy transition, right? New age solutions are going to be needed for acceleration, right? You're coming up with new technology, new assets that are scaling out. From a fleet scale management point of view, our biggest challenge in the EPC world is I do not have enough trained manpower on new age solutions that can actually scale. So these type of solutions now enable for, let's say, a green hydrogen or a green ammonia solution, that module that's being built. I do not have enough, I will not be able to scalably build all of those or design all of those, right? So these type of solutions then enable you to achieve that.
Thank you. That's fantastic. So I just want to move us on to talk a little bit more about collaborating and the ecosystem. You know, Akhilesh obviously mentioned earlier, you know, they need to have hyperscalers involved, they need to have trusted advisors involved, they need to have, you know, to have the right bespoke solutions. Obviously, organizations also have their internal teams, like you've described. So I just would like to get some perspectives. Maybe we'll start with you, Rahul, on kind of how you see that ecosystem working between private enterprises, you know, your organization, other players, and how, whether you think that's changing and becoming more commonplace, or whether it's still quite hard to work with more than one other party in any particular situation.
So you mean in terms of how you scale these?
Yeah, and how you work with either the vendors that you're selling to or other parties. I mean, I think you also, Amardeep, mentioned universities and, you know, what your ecosystem looks like for business.
Yeah, so I think it's a combination of what these guys said. So like Prabhu mentioned about getting the right people in the room. So, and we solve variety of use cases. Sometimes it's about vegetation management and sustainability. It's around understanding habitats. So for some, you need to get the arborists and, you know, the foresters in the room. For sustainability use cases, it may be ecologists. We're talking about climates, it may be, you know, those folks. So it's a combination of those ecosystems. Universities do play a role. So in the sense of the latest in technology, it's like applied AI or the new concepts which are there. But from an ecosystem perspective, yeah, I mean, I think it's when we're working on these pilots, at least to start with, understanding those use cases, working with the corresponding folks or those enterprises side to ensure they are comfortable. So when they're using the tool, there is always that, like I mentioned, that trust issue earlier, that the AI is not like as good as seeing something over there. So it's like if a person is going to the field for inspection, what they see in reality based on their decades of experience, the AI cannot suddenly replicate that from day one, right? So how do you get that initial AI results? Okay, this may or may not be accurate. Go with them on the field, send your arborists and other folks which we have hired along with to build that confidence along with. And as you learn more and more, so as a CTO or as a CPO, my job then is, okay, all this is done. How do you scale it for future, right?
Suket, I don't know if you've got any thoughts from your perspective on that, and maybe building on what you were talking about earlier in terms of the need to educate through competition, I think was your phrase, or educate and compete.
Yes, I think quite often with technology we end up with solutions that are looking for problems. And I think that becomes quite a challenging space. And if we can collaborate and have problems that are looking for solutions, then you end up with some better outcomes. And quite often what we find with our customers is there are 2 or 3 people who are trying to sell them a similar sort of technology stack as us. And that ends up with the customer being quite confused because it's a bit like a television, radio, still image. You know, they're not used to buying this yet. They don't necessarily understand how to work their procurement practices. They don't understand the benefits of using mine or your technology. And that's where if we could set some common frameworks to say, look, this is stuff which is common. Our models are common, our data is common. We might use a slightly different way of interfacing. And then the outcomes can be different. So we can educate the customer on the basic pieces and then compete on the real value adds. That's when I think we'll be able to move customers through sales cycles in a far more predictable fashion, rather than some very, very long wait times, which end up happening and that cause a lot of disinterest within customers.
Yeah. Thank you. And I'm keen to get your reflections, but also I suppose to think how you think about when you want to use a specialist third party, how you make that kind of decision on what do you want to do within your own team and your skills and experience versus when you want to bring in outside support.
No, certainly at Chevron we believe that that one of our core strengths to build energy systems for the future is our assets, capability of our people and technology, and the partnerships we build. So we are very declarative that we will be known for our people, performance, and partnership. Okay. So that is part of our strategy, and that's how we approach it. Now, to scale, the solutions and the problems we need to solve for definitely requires continued, partnership and progress across the energy system. See, we need multiple solutions. Not one company, one country or one industry is going to solve on its own or meet the energy and climate goals. But I do believe that if you all work together, we can be successful. So we do partner with universities, startups, and we work with SI partners. So we certainly tap into national labs. So this is something we do, Chevron does globally, and that we use to explore, evaluate solutions and scale solutions with them. So we believe partnership is very important to make progress.
Amardeep?
Well, I have to give credit to Prabhu's organization. They actually helped us partner with Aspen. Okay. Right. So they said, hey, we see gaps, or we see you are doing one thing well, you guys are doing other thing well. If you guys work together, it'll help us. So I do have to give that kind of credit over there. But we as startups as well, right? So we are invested into by Berkeley. Okay, we have also tapped into Mila, which is Montreal, their AI Institute, and there's been a case study written, a Harvard case study written on us by IIM Bangalore. So we do tap into different parts. IIM gives a very different business view. Berkeley's gives us the Silicon Valley view. So it's different organizations have really helped us. And we would not be where we are without support of SPE and World Petroleum Congress and others.
Thank you very much, everybody. So I've been given the tap from our host, Anish, just to say we're running late. So we are gonna wrap this conversation up. But thank you so much. I've certainly taken a lot from it. I've got lots of hints and tips that I'll be using. So thank you very much, everyone, for your time today. Thank you for coming, and thank you, everyone, for listening.
Thank you.
Which I think you will feel it's worth taking back with you. And it's been a long day. While that happens, I just wanted to inform you of a happy news that I'm not going to do the roundup which was there in the agenda. Because it's been such a long day, and you've been a very patient audience. Of course, as it happens, the first part is always busier. But I can tell you, the patient and thoughtful, attentive audience that we have had, it's just phenomenal. Now, what we have in the evening after this, after we take a half-hour break, is a conversation with Neil Chatterjee and Rajiv Mishra. Neil Chatterjee, you heard in the morning, and Rajiv Mishra is the CEO and MD of Apraava Energy. He also has other hats, including being the chair of APP, on multiple committee co-chairs on CII. The format is going to be very different. We're just going to hold a glass of refreshments, whatever is your poison, and then just have an evening chat around things which could be anything, as long as it's something which is kind of within boundaries. We can talk about all of that. And then we get into the ENRich band and dinner. The ENRich band is an in-house band. Last 3 years it's been playing, and I think they do a pretty decent job. So after that, while you have your conversations, I'm sure you're going to engage, enjoy that. So thank you for a wonderful day. I am very grateful to you personally for all the good messages I've got about the day, including my presentation. I've got fantastic messages about Akhilesh's presentation. I'll tell you the big difference between his presentation and my presentation. My presentation took 2 months to make. His presentation took 2 hours. So that's the difference. So you can now place me on that scale which he showed. I'm closer to the mouse, and he's somewhere on the other side of the spectrum, something which is already evolved or going to evolve further. So thank you again. Long day, but really love it. I've loved every bit of it. Let's take a break, grab a tea, grab a coffee, and then in half hour time, we get back over here for some very, very informal conversations with Neil and Rajiv. Thank you.